I clawed my way out of nothing, and I mean that literally. My mother raised me in a 2-bedroom apartment in Scarborough. She worked double shifts at a long-term care facility on Ellesmere, the kind of job where you go home smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion. She never complained, not once. I used to fall asleep to the sound of her taking off her shoes at the front door, and I told myself, even at 8 years old, that I would make her life easier someday. I kept that promise. By 29, I was a senior financial analyst at one of the largest property management firms in Toronto. I had my own condo in Leslieville, a good RRS savings account I added to every single month without fail. I wasn't rich, but I had built something solid out of nothing, and I was proud of that. His name was Jonathan. We met at a charity gala for Sick Kids Hospital, the kind of event where tables cost $4,000 a seat and everyone wears name tags they don't need because everyone already knows everyone. I was there representing my firm. He was there because his family had donated a wing to the hospital 14 years ago and apparently never let anyone forget it. He was charming in a way that felt effortless, but I know now it was very carefully rehearsed. He asked about my work with genuine seeming curiosity. He laughed at things that were actually funny, not just things that were supposed to be funny. He walked me to the subway at the end of the night even though he had a car waiting. I thought that was sweet. I thought a lot of things back then. We dated for almost a year before he brought me home to meet his family. His parents lived in Forest Hill. If you don't know Toronto, Forest Hill is the kind of neighborhood where the hedges are trimmed with a ruler and the houses don't have prices because if you have to ask, you're already in the wrong postal code. His family home had a circular driveway, a catering company for dinner parties, and a housekeeper named Rosaria who had worked for them for 22 years. The first time I walked through that door, his mother looked at me the way you look at a shoe that doesn't quite fit. Something between disappointment and determination to make it work anyway. His father shook my hand once and then spent the rest of the evening talking to Jonathan's university friend who worked at a Bay Street law firm. His younger sister, I'll call her his sister, was the only one who seemed genuinely warm, but I found out later that she reported everything I said back to their mother. Every single thing. Dinner was a performance. Fine china, linen napkins, 3 forks per person. Jonathan's mother sat at the head of the table and made comments that were technically compliments but landed like something else entirely. She said I must be so ambitious to have achieved what I had without the benefit of connections. She said my dress was very practical. She asked whether my own mother had remarried after my father left, and she said it with such careful neutrality that it took me a full 3 seconds to feel the sting of it. I smiled through all of it. I had been smiling through things my entire life. The first time I passed out at their house, I thought it was the wine. I don't normally drink much, a glass here, a glass there, but I had half a glass of Bordeaux at dinner, and by 8:30 I felt like my bones had dissolved. Jonathan guided me to the guest room, and when I woke up 2 hours later, my blouse was untucked and retucked incorrectly, the buttons misaligned by 1. My hair was loose when I knew I had clipped it before dinner. I felt disoriented in a way that didn't match half a glass of wine, not even close. I mentioned it to Jonathan on the drive home. He laughed it off. He said I must have moved in my sleep. He said the guest room mattress was new, and sometimes that made people sleep deeply. He was so relaxed about it that I wondered if I was overreacting. I went home, showered, went to bed, and told myself to let it go. The second time it happened was at a long weekend dinner 3 months later. This time I didn't drink at all. I switched to sparkling water before the appetizers and kept my glass in my hand the entire evening. And still, around 9 o'clock I felt a heaviness spread through me like something thick and dark was filling my lungs. I excused myself to the washroom, sat on the edge of the bathtub, and tried to breathe through it. The next thing I remember is waking up on the same guest bed, same room, same off-kilter feeling. This time when I looked in the mirror, my lipstick was smeared across my cheek. Not worn off, smeared. Like something had happened to my face while I was unconscious, and my blazer was on inside out. I didn't say anything at dinner. I smiled and thanked them for a lovely evening and let Jonathan walk me to his car. But in my chest, something cold had settled in and it wasn't leaving. In my field, I investigate financial irregularities for a living. I follow threads. I notice when numbers don't add up. I had spent a decade learning to trust patterns even when people told me I was wrong. And this pattern was unmistakable. I had been drugged, twice, in the home of my boyfriend's family. The first thing I did was go to the hospital, not the next day, that night. I told Jonathan I needed to stop for water, and instead I walked into the Sunnybrook emergency room and told the triage nurse that I believed I had been given something without my knowledge. They took a blood sample. The on-call physician was thorough and unhurried, and she told me to follow up in 3 days when the tox panel came back. The tox panel came back positive for a benzodiazepine, a sedative, the kind you would use to make someone compliant, confused, and easy to manage. I sat in the parking lot of my condo building for 45 minutes after I got that call. I didn't cry. I was past the point of crying. I was in the part of shock that feels very quiet and very clear. I thought about Jonathan. I thought about his hands, warm on my back when he guided me to the guest room both times. His voice, calm, reassuring. His laugh when I suggested something was wrong. I thought about the guest room with its freshly made bed and its one narrow window. I thought about the fact that both times I was moved there and both times I woke up with my clothing disturbed. I did not confront him. I did not ask questions. I smiled the next time he called. I made plans for the upcoming weekend, and I went home and I started building a case. I had a friend from university who now worked in IT security for a financial institution downtown. I'll call her my friend. She helped me configure a small recording device, a perfectly legal audio recorder, the size of a USB drive, that I could carry in my bag without anyone knowing it was there. She also helped me set up remote logging on my personal laptop so I could see if anyone attempted to access it while I was unconscious. She didn't ask me too many questions. She just looked at me across the coffee shop table and said, "How long?" I said twice. She said, "Okay." And we got to work. I also called a lawyer. A family and civil law specialist I found through a colleague's referral, somebody discreet, somebody who operated out of a small office on Bloor West rather than a glass tower downtown. I sat in her office and I put the tox report on her desk and I told her everything I knew. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Before we do anything, we document everything." I said I understood. She told me not to discuss this with Jonathan under any circumstances. Not a hint, not a question, not an offhand comment. I nodded. I went back to their house one more time. Jonathan's mother had organized a dinner party. A larger one, 12 guests, the kind of event where his family showcased themselves against the backdrop of their own home. A CFO from his father's business circle was going to be there, someone from their investment board. I realized, talking to Jonathan about the guest list, that this dinner wasn't social. It was a performance of stability and success, and I was a prop in it. The devoted girlfriend from modest origins who had been cleaned up just enough to present in company without embarrassing anyone. I almost didn't go. But my lawyer and I had talked through the timeline. If something happened again at the house, I needed to be there to record it. And I needed to leave under my own power this time, with my phone and my recorder and my wits intact. My friend had reviewed the remote logs from my previous visits. Both times, someone had attempted to access my laptop while it was in my bag, in the coat closet by the entrance, within the first 40 minutes of my arrival. I had been unconscious both times during that window. I needed to know what they were looking for. I arrived at the dinner party carrying my bag with the recorder running. I wore my hair up so I would notice immediately if it was touched. I drank nothing, not water, not wine, not sparkling anything. I had a small headache by 9 o'clock from sheer dehydration, but I was not going to give them a single opportunity. Halfway through the evening, Jonathan's mother offered me a glass of sparkling water. She poured herself at the sideboard. She brought it to me personally, hand-delivered, smiling like a woman who has never in her life done anything she could be ashamed of. I thanked her warmly and set the glass down on the table beside me. I never touched it again. At 10:15, I excused myself to check on my coat. The coat closet was near the front entrance, down a short hallway from the dining room. I had been watching the hallway all evening. Jonathan's father had gone down it twice in the past hour. His sister had gone down it once. I took my time in the hallway. I checked my bag. I checked the recorder. Everything was running. I straightened my coat on its hanger and walked back to the dining room like a woman without a single concern in the world. The tox panel from that evening. I took another blood sample the following morning at a walk-in clinic near my office. First thing, came back clean. They hadn't been able to drug me this time, and because they hadn't been able to drug me, they hadn't been able to access my laptop. I know this because the remote logs showed 0 attempts, but the recorder had been running the whole time. I sat at my kitchen table on a Saturday morning with a cup of tea and earbuds in, and I listened to 4 hours of dinner party conversation. Most of it was exactly what you'd expect. Business talk, real estate. Someone's son who had just been called to the bar in Ontario. Someone's daughter's engagement to a man from a good family in Vancouver. And then, at the 47-minute mark, I heard Jonathan's father step away from the main table. I heard the sounds of a hallway, a door, and then his voice, low and careful, speaking to someone else in the room. A woman's voice answered. Jonathan's mother. They were talking about me, not in a vague way, not in the way people talk about a girlfriend they're uncertain of. They were talking about a specific document, a partnership amendment that would route a portion of my firm's property audit contracts through a holding company connected to their family's investment group. A document, his father said in a tone I recognized from every boardroom I had ever sat in, that needed one more signature before their filing deadline at the end of the fiscal quarter. My signature. I am a senior financial analyst. My name is on my firm's registered audit contracts. A signature from me, forged on an amendment document, would have routed hundreds of thousands of dollars in government-tendered audit work to a private holding company that had no legitimate claim to it. It would have looked like I had approved the arrangement personally. It would have destroyed my career. And it would have exposed me to potential fraud charges. They had been sedating me at family dinners and attempting to access my work laptop to find those contract files. They had been trying to build a forgery while I was unconscious and couldn't stop them. My hands were very steady when I took the earbuds out. I noticed that about myself. After everything, the hospital, the tox reports, the remote logs, the recordings, my hands were completely still. I called my lawyer from the kitchen table. I said, I have it. She said, all of it? I said, all of it. She was quiet for a moment and then she said, don't touch anything, bring me the recorder tomorrow morning. I'll have someone from my network at the RCMP Commercial Crime Unit ready to receive a briefing. We met the following Monday. My lawyer, the RCMP contact, and a forensic accountant she had brought in to review the document trail. I brought the recorder, the tox reports, both of them, the remote access logs, and a complete written account of both incidents including dates, times, and the names of everyone who had been present. The RCMP contact listened to the relevant sections of the recording twice. He didn't say much. He took notes on a yellow legal pad with a mechanical pencil, and he asked me 2 clarifying questions about the structure of the audit contracts. When I answered them, he looked at my lawyer and said, this is solid. I didn't tell Jonathan. That part was harder than I expected. Not because I still loved him in the way I had before all of this. That feeling had been replaced by something colder and more clear-eyed. But because we still talked every few days, and I had to keep those conversations completely normal. I asked about his week. I mentioned a restaurant I wanted to try in Kensington Market. I said I was tired from a long audit cycle, and he said I worked too hard, and I smiled into my phone like a woman without a single secret. 6 weeks after I handed the recorder to my lawyer, Jonathan's father was charged with fraud over $5,000, conspiracy to commit forgery, and criminal breach of trust. Jonathan's mother was charged as a co-conspirator. The holding company connected to their investment group was flagged for a full CRA audit. 3 other women came forward, former associates of the family, women who had been in relationships or business partnerships with people connected to that household, and described similar patterns. Unexplained sedation, disturbed clothing, attempts to access personal devices. Jonathan was charged last. His lawyer released a statement saying he had no knowledge of his parents' activities. The RCMP's position, based on the evidence, was different. I was not there for any of the arrest. My lawyer called me from her office when it was done, and I was sitting at my desk at work, reviewing an audit file for a commercial property in Etobicoke. I hung up the call, I took a breath, and I kept working. That felt right. That felt like the truest version of what I had always been, someone who built something solid and kept building it no matter what came down around her. The case is still working its way through the Ontario court system, as these things do. My name never appeared in any media coverage. My firm was informed of the situation through proper legal channels, and my role in uncovering it was noted in the RCMP's report. My director called me into his office the week after everything became official and told me that the firm stood behind me completely. He didn't say much else. He didn't need to. I think about that first dinner in Forest Hill sometimes. The 3 forks, the Bordeaux I barely touched. Jonathan's mother with her careful, calibrated neutrality, looking at me like a shoe that didn't quite fit. What she never understood, what none of them ever understood, is that women who grow up without a safety net learn very early to pay attention. To patterns, to things that don't add up, to the space between what someone says and what their eyes are actually doing. My mother taught me that, on double shifts in Scarborough, coming home at 2 in the morning with antiseptic on her hands, I don't need 3 forks, I never did, but I do know exactly what to do when the numbers stop adding up. And I am very, very patient.